welcome back, friends. Hola, amigos. Namaskar, and I've forgotten every other language at this point. We are still in Puerto Rico, and today we're going to attempt, this is Arthur and I, we're going to attempt one of the most challenging hikes on Puerto Rico. There's a rainforest here called the El Yunque Rainforest, which is the only rainforest in the United States. Not the biggest rainforest, it's about 29,000 acres. And the El Yunque Rainforest has some other peaks that you can hike to. You have to get reservations, you have to go into the park. But then we heard about one called the El Toro Peak, which is the highest point in El Yunque National Park. It's over 2,000 feet tall. We're going to be hiking today about 1,500 feet of that. And when you bear in mind the Empire State Building, if you were to walk from the street level to the very top floor of the Empire State Building, it's around 1,250 feet. So what we're going to be doing today is the equivalent of walking to the top of the Empire State Building via stairs and then doing a bit more because we must be insane. So we are at the trailhead at the bottom of the El Toro Trail right now. We've got all the essentials. We're covered in sunscreen. We're covered in bug spray. We've got water. We've got granola bars. We're good to go. We've got ponchos because at the very top, it's a cloud forest, not a rainforest, meaning that the top forest is in the clouds almost all the time. So we are pretty well prepared. There are a few other hikers. It's kind of early, but there are a few other hikers heading out here as well. And we're going to go hit the trail. So we're going to show you some of the highlights. We're not going to bore you because it could very well take us 3 hours to get to the top and another 3 hours to get back down again. So we're not going to make a 6-hour video, you'll be glad to hear, but we will share with you some of the highlights of the trail. So let's get rolling. So we are just starting the hike now, and it's my first impressions are one, really, really steep. That should be no surprise. I mean, it just continues at this relentless, incline all the way. And as you can see, I hike a lot, and it's taking its toll. The other thing I'm feeling is it rained last night, and the trail is really slick. There's lots of branches down. This isn't a managed trail. This is like, it's just people walk it, and therefore it gets kind of naturally cleared by people walking up and down. So it's a little slippery. There's a lot of things to climb over, but I'm kind of enjoying it. I mean, check out this amazing scenery that we're in. So we are going to head back on the trail. We'll see you again in a second. One thing that's really obvious here is the color of the soil. The soil, it looks like clay. It could be used as clay and has been by indigenous people for centuries here. And the reason the soil is this color is because of all the iron in it at this low altitude. And we'll see that change as we get further up the mountain. So we have just made it, we're about a quarter of the way up the El Toro Trail, and we are now in the El Toro Wilderness as part of the El Yunque National Forest. And can you hear the rainforest, the birds and the bugs and lizards? And as you can tell, I'm kind of sweaty. But one thing I thought you might be wondering is, Simon, what is that thing around your neck? And I really like to pay respect when I'm hiking to the local indigenous people who have been here before. And this design on the stone, part of it is a design by the Taino people. And the Taino people lived here before the Spanish people came and conquered it in the 1500s. So the Taino were the indigenous native people who lived in this land before. What I think is amazing is the stories were always that the Taino people had been killed out completely, all of them gone, which would obviously be such a tragedy for history. But the Taino people still live here in small communities. They still maintain their old religious beliefs. And this is one of the petroglyphs that during prehistoric times they would have carved onto rocks. The other thing on this is a coqui frog, which you will hear during our walk today. Coqui frogs are super loud and they make a noise that sounds like coqui, coqui. So that is what I'm wearing to kind of pay a bit of respect to the people who came before me in this mountain. So we're about a quarter of the way in. I feel like I've just about caught my breath, but man, I'm still sweating. It's about 30 degrees centigrade here, in the mid 90s in Fahrenheit, and the humidity is already above 90%. So it is hot, it is humid, and it is steep and slimy and slippery. So we're going to keep making our way up this mountain and we'll let you know what we find. So we are about halfway up El Toro, and man, I am drenched. I've got sweat dripping from my sweat. But about halfway up this mountain, we're now starting to see the first signs of human habitation. There's an old shed thing here that was probably used for cane sugar that they grew here, and it was actually one of the most environmentally damaging crops that thankfully they stopped producing here in the 1930s, both for the environment, but also it was one of the primary uses of slaves here. So there may have been, well, there were certainly slaves working up here halfway up this mountain gathering sugar. But there were probably also people living up here in these tiny shacks as well. So it certainly goes to make you think. But I'm also thinking we're about halfway up, and we were thinking it was going to dry out about now. Not so much. Look at the state of the trail here. It is still slippery. It is still wet. It is even hotter and more humid. So we got nothing to do. Either we keep going up or we start going down. So I guess we keep going up. So, man, we are about 3/4 of the way up the El Toro mountain. So we must be, I don't know, certainly over 1,000 feet that we've walked in elevation. And actually this trail, you walk around 2,000 feet in elevation because some of it goes down and then back up again, and there are some flat pieces. So we've certainly done, probably I would estimate, around 1,400 to 1,500 feet gain at this point, which is exhausting. My clothes are drenched in sweat. We just found this marginally dry area to have a rest, but I guess just one comment on the hike. You know, it's less of a hike. Normally when I'm hiking, the mental mantra that I say to myself is it's just one foot in front of the other. It's just left foot, right foot, so on and so forth. And you can be as tired as you want to be, but you can put one foot in front of the other. Just take one step and keep on going. But this one is not that kind of hike. This is like crazy, muddy, thin things. Like you're trying to walk, and half the time you're like skirting around the mud. Half the time you're saying just screw it and getting wet feet wading through the mud. Half the time you're like clambering over things. So it's more like an obstacle course than it is a hike. But we are about 75 or 80% done with this thing. So it's getting harder, actually, as we're going. It feels like the steep pieces were further down below, and as it's plateauing out, there's just more and more mud, more and more water, more and more trees down, and it just makes the hike so much harder. But we're so close to the end, so we're going to go finish this thing. So, I know I said we would see you at the summit, but man, this last half mile or so is so hard and so muddy, and the mud is so deep. I mean, this is what we look like now. We are mud people, one with the bog. The predator would never catch us because we're so covered in mud. I don't even think the bugs are interested because we're one with them now. But we are so close to the top. We have had one conversation about maybe quitting, but honestly, the way back down is exactly the same way we came back up. We came up here, so it's not going to be any better. So I say, let's just keep on trucking and see if we can just complete this monster and get to the top. Fingers crossed. So as we are so close to the top, I keep saying that, again, it's getting tougher. I just sliced my arm up here on, I don't even know what. It's just constant slipping and sliding and falling over. But check out this view right here. We must be so close to the top of El Toro because the views are already impressive. I can't wait to see what they're like at the top. But man, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. This is a grueling hike. Probably the toughest hike I've ever done in my life. But there's nothing to do now but finish it. So let's get to the top. Well, I'm not sure if you can even see me through the mud on my phone, but we made it. We are at the top of the El Toro Mountain, the highest point in the El Yunque National Rainforest. Pretty damn cool. The views are amazing. We're going to sit here and rehydrate. First of all, we got loads of water. We've also got protein bars to give us a bit more energy for the trip down, because the trip down is exactly the same as the trip up, just probably slippier because we're going down. And we also, as a special treat, because we are the spicy boys, we have Takis waves. Takis, the sweetest of spicy. We're not really sponsored by Takis. I really wish we were, because they are delicious. So we're going to eat our Takis, eat our protein bars, drink our water, rehydrate, and then get the hell off this mountain, because this hike has been grueling. Well, thanks for watching. We will see you next time, friends, on Nerd Safari.